just to clarify, the whole
Yes.
point of this thing is to sort of inspire others to sort of get involved and represent their communities.
Yep.
You know?
Yep.
There's no political bias or anything like that.
No. Yep.
I may let you have a moment here and there to like, you know, oh, the bloody Labor government, they should be doing better or something if you wanted to. Because some of the Liberals like to just chime in and do that.
Yeah, yeah.
And they run away with it and I got to try and bring it back.
Yeah, no.
It's not the focus of this.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm juicing.
People don't tend to relate to that as much either, I don't think. So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Good.
Yep.
That's fine. So yeah, it's just sort of inspiring the next generation
Yeah.
or whoever might want to step up.
Yeah.
You know, in a level of irony, if some kind of liberal aligned kind of person sees your journey
Yeah.
and goes, oh, I want to step up. Not in like a get the Greens kind of way, but in like a, oh, so her background is this. So I could probably do such a thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's kind of what the go is.
Yep. Okay.
Yeah. All right. So
And how far back do you want me to go in the journey? Because like there's many ways I can tell the story and like you can start from, you know, I mean, there's many points in my life I can start the story from as well and like where the different moments are at kind of the tipping point. But yeah, I guess it's like, you know, the young person at school and like how I grew up and that stuff. But it's some of that's not super exciting, but I guess it's just it's all part
honestly,
of the story.
It's not about being super exciting.
Yeah,
it's about sort of just conveying your upbringing and where you've come from.
Yeah.
I think is enough to like sort of normalize and humanize you. Because I think there's an aspect of like politics where, oh, they're in that office, I can abuse them and treat them differently and they should fix everything overnight. And it's like, well, no, the reality is they're an everyday person like you.
Yeah.
And if you don't think they're doing a good enough job or you think you could do it better or whatever, step up. Or if you like them enough, support them.
Yeah.
You know? Because I think doing my research on the drive here, listening to your opening speech.
Yeah.
There was an unnamed politician.
Yeah.
And they didn't give you a very good answer.
Yeah. It's so true. That moment was just like seared into my brain.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
And then
just the sense of like disappointment was so profound.
Why'd you go for the job then if there's nothing to fix?
Yeah. Oh, It just killed me. Yeah.
So yeah, we can touch on that. Talk about that.
Yeah.
And then what else? There was another one where there was someone who was in, I can't remember the name particularly, sorry, but that's why I have my notes usually.
Yeah, that's okay.
You wanted to help support their campaign or whatever, or help support them.
Oh, yes.
You could.
Yeah.
Do you remember
Richard Di Natale.
That's the one.
Yeah.
So stuff like that.
Yeah, cool.
But yeah, we can go back because like there is a common thread that I've noticed. I guess maybe it's half already started, but the great thing that Australia has, which is this success migrant story.
Yes.
You know, and your parents coming in from Ireland.
Yeah, my mum does. Yeah,
mum does.
So
it's just the fact that Australia does have something special where a first generation person can just step up and become a politician.
Yeah.
And even like first generation, like Samantha Ratnam.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Even if you've heard her and spoken with her, and it's impressive that Australia can do that.
It is. Yeah.
Or I'm preaching to the choir here.
Yeah. No, I think that's a lens on it though that I don't always think about because, you know, you kind of, but it's true. Yeah. And I was the first to kind of, some people went to university, like my aunties did later in life, but no one in that generation just went from school to university. It wasn't a thing, you know, like my mum didn't even finish school, you know.
Same. My mum was like, nah, I got to get working.
Yeah. So she went to university when I was in high school, I think, like end of high school. But found like had to get a special pathway to even get in, you know.
As a senior student,
like as an adult, like, so So she's a teacher now, but was, you know, like just didn't have those opportunities. Whereas, I was able to go, you know, like I was the first kind of on either side of the family to do that.
It's a big deal, I think, especially from like that generational change from like, kids, what your parents would have been kids in the like 70s.
Yeah.
In the 80s and that. Like my mom, my mom was born in the 70s, but it's like that where it's, school, whatever. But then their kids going to uni is a big deal.
Yeah.
All right. Anyway, I'm just repeating and preaching.
Yeah, that's
fine. That's fine. We'll start. Might keep some of that in. That was nice.
Yeah.
So welcome to Bridge by Words, the podcast where aspiring leaders connect with experienced politicians, gaining insights and inspiration for their own political journeys. Today, I'm fortunate enough to sit down with a member of the Victorian Parliament Upper House, member for Western Victoria, Sarah Mansfield, Dr. Sarah Mansfield.
Yes.
That's the rough introduction. If I butchered anything or I missed anything, how would you best introduce yourself?
No, that's great. I think that's,
Nailed that. No notes. Yeah. So anything else you'd put on your introduction or?
No, I think that's enough, I think. That's enough of the titles. Proud
Geelong resident?
Proud Geelong resident, live here with my family. Yep. The only other thing is I'm deputy leader of the Victorian Greens, but I don't think you need to say that.
I need to say that?
No, I don't think you need to say that. I think Western Victoria is kind of nicer.
What's that thing? It's like, because I do have a habit of not saying the party by accident.
Yeah.
And then maybe I should or shouldn't. I don't know.
No, I don't know. I think that's good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because they're like, irrelevant of the party, you are a person who represents your community.
Exactly. Yeah. I'd rather be sort of seen as that first. So yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. All right. Yep. That's a good way to do it, I think. Yeah. Speaking of parties, I guess we'll go on why the Greens.
Yes.
If you wanted to.
That's fine. That's very easy for me to answer. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So why the Greens? What spoke to you?
I think the values alignment was very strong. I think probably during the years in my life where my political views were being formed, it was around the time of the Tampa incident, which, some people may not really remember now, but at the time it was,
take your time. Look,
it was huge at the time. So I was sort of 17, turning 18 around that time. It was going to be the first election I voted in, and we had a Liberal government led by John Howard who basically took this really hardline approach to asylum seekers, and it was awful. Basically, it was just really dehumanising people. And then when Labor turned around and went, "Well, we'll do boat turnbacks as well," and kind of tried to match the rhetoric and didn't call out the just absolutely appalling,
like a stop the boat's arm race.
It was where all of that came from, and to the point where there was also an incident where there were false accusations of asylum seekers throwing their children overboard, which was an absolute scandal, and has since been shown to have, being
not be true.
And at the time it seemed also so obvious and so outrageous. And the only ones speaking the truth were the Greens for me in that time. Bob Brown's Greens. And it was just, I felt it very strong. I was a very passionate young person. I felt the outrage of that moment really strongly. I'm not sure why. I think I was tuned into those things, and so for me from that point onwards, I felt very strongly aligned with Greens values.
Because they seem to be the only ones speaking out.
Seem to be the only ones speaking out and speaking the truth on those issues, and speaking in a way that I felt I could relate to. So that was a really formative moment. But I still didn't become politically active for many more years. Like I was engaged in different issues, and it was typically the Greens, not always, but, typically the Greens that still spoke to me in terms of values, whether it was things around climate, whether it was around equity, all of those things just for me became the way I related to it. And then the tipping point for me, there's sort of a later tipping point for me, but it was very much around that values alignment, and it was finding people in the Parliament who were saying things that just made sense to me, that I could relate to and go, yes, someone gets it. Someone's in there saying what I think and feel. They're the only people who seem to see this situation for what it really is and are willing to stand up and do something about it.
Yeah.
I think a number of times along the journey, other parties had perhaps professed values that did resonate as well, but then when it came to acting on it, acted in ways that were contrary to those values, and I found that very difficult. To watch.
Acting on that in the sense of,
or failing to act on it either one way or the other.
Standing on that moral. Standing by your morals. Sort of thing.
Or declaring, climate change being the biggest moral challenge of our generation, and then
our kids are probably going to
not
live till the next century.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. So, and not being able to, not acting on that, it's just very distressing. Yeah.
Especially when it's there.
when it's
obvious.
there. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And I mean, the asylum seeker issue is one that still is going on, and other countries have now modelled themselves on Australia. And I actually find it such a difficult issue to engage with sometimes, because it's just so profoundly, it's such a profound there's so many profound violations of people's human rights, you know, with our offshore detention regime, just the dehumanising that happens in so much of that process, leaving people in limbo for years and years. There's so many community members, even in our local community, that have just been left in legal limbo. And you see the impact on them, their families, their kids. They might have a kid that was born overseas or in detention, you know, a kid that's been born here. So one of them's a citizen and has rights. The other ones could potentially be deported at any time. They might have done all their schooling here. That, you know. Yeah,
very isolating thing for them.
Why do we do this to people? You know, I just still find it horrendous. And it all comes back, like I think about where a lot of that started, which was right back when I was, you know, that sort of as a late teenager.
Hearing John Howard.
Yeah. And so that's where I think a lot of that sort of sense of where my political values lie comes from.
Okay.
Yeah.
So John Howard was a big inspiration to get to get active. I guess it's playing words there, but
it definitely gave me some energy around it. Yeah. I mean, I think I also went to school in Canberra, so for most of my school. So I moved around a lot growing up. Sort of born in Sydney, started school in Wollongong, and everyone's always like, "Oh, your parents in the armed forces or something really exciting, you know, something exotic." No, it was basically where the next job opportunity came up for my dad. He was in retail management, and so we just moved around. But we spent a bit of time in Canberra. So I was sort of, you know, year 2 or 3 or something to the end of my schooling was in Canberra. And
like primary school and high school.
Yeah, in high school. Okay. And so it was maybe I didn't feel like we were bombarded with politics, but maybe you're a bit closer to it. And, I mean, there's like
every road goes around that big building.
Yeah. And I think, you know, your excursions are always to Parliament House, because what else do you do, you know? And so I think you do have that closeness to it. I was a bit of a nerd too. So, you know, I liked doing stuff that probably led me to paying a bit more attention to what was happening politically.
So you kind of didn't get a choice.
So So maybe that made it more real. My parents weren't super political. They're still, you know, they engage and they follow what I'm doing, but they have their own views about things. But I think I will. I did find that period of time one that really sparked.
Yeah. Do they call you and like, because I got friends that are like, all right, I don't follow it at all, which is, I think a lot of Australians are just like, I don't care until the election comes up. And they go, who should I vote for? What are the pros and cons of this and this person and that person? And do you have to run them through and be like, all right, well, this party doesn't like this idea. This one likes this one.
No, they like
not like you're trying to tell them how to vote, but you just
they like to form their own.
Okay, good,
they like to form their own views on it, and that's good. It's always been that way. I don't think we try and I don't try.
I'm not saying you're brainwashing anyone.
No, I don't try to do any convincing, and so they come to their own views about different things, and that's good. But
maybe it's just my friends; they're a bit lazy.
Yeah, no. And probably because they still live in the south coast of New South Wales now, so they like I have no idea who. You know, what their local context is.
Yeah, it's true. It's all different. It's relative, isn't it?
So yeah. But no, it's I think I do think that early period was one where I suppose my interest in politics was definitely heightened. But I think the other thing was that I was always someone who I think felt those pulls of, you know, social justice really strongly and just what I was interested in. Like and maybe that was to do with my upbringing. You know, Mum was really she was always reminding us of, you know, doing the right thing, thinking about other people, remembering that we were really lucky.
Yeah.
Even when we had some pretty challenging periods of time growing up, but we're just never allowed to forget that there's still other people out there that are, you know, you've got significant privilege just by the fact of, you know,
the fact that we're in this country.
they're in this country, you know, all the other privilege that potentially comes with being, you know, white person who's, you know, speaks English, who, who's got parents with income, who, you know, for all the different challenging, you know, situations we found ourselves in, we always had a roof over our heads, you know. I had access to decent education, even when it was your local public school, whatever it was still, something we still had all of that. And, you know, grew up in a, by and large, loving, nurturing environment. You know, I've got great siblings. That's something that not everyone gets. And so we were always made to be aware of that.
It's something that's in the global minority.
Yeah.
You know,
absolutely.
In the upper global north, whatever they call it. Yeah.
And it probably comes partly from, you know, she didn't grow up with that same opportunity and in very different circumstances. And so lived a lot more of that, I think. And so that was...
Oh, yeah, especially being like a child in Ireland.
And in a big family, you know. She's one of 7 kids and, you know, all sorts of different things that come with that. So you're never let to sort of... I think it was always one of those things where you're aware of your circumstances, your privilege, and to be thinking outside of your position and what can you do to help others and to serve. Like this idea of service was something that came through very strongly, I think, in my upbringing and childhood. So there was probably that element there, which influenced then my career choices. I think after that, you know, when I was finishing school, I was thinking I had different interest areas, but I didn't know what I was going to do with any of it.
Yeah.
Deep
what were the
down,
top 3?
Deep down, what I really wanted to do, and it's probably still like your secret passion, although maybe I've arrived there in a weird sort of way. I wanted to be like a human rights lawyer. You know, I just wanted to be out there fighting for justice. I love those movies where you've got someone who's just fighting for justice against.
Was it Eva Bronkovich or something?
Oh, Erin Brockovich. That style movie. You know, where it's like the regular person who just takes on, you know, the evil big corporation. And I love that. It always appealed to me. And I thought, I'm going to go study law. I'm going to be a human rights lawyer. And then I don't know what it was, but maybe I was exposed through a few things to different people who'd gone down that path but found themselves working in very unsatisfying legal jobs or, you know, and I feared, well, where am I going to end up? You know, where's this actually going to lead? What's the pathway?
Yeah.
And I thought about, I quite liked science as well as humanities, but something about health, you know, medicine seemed very, and this is very naive, but seemed quite noble. And like no matter what I do, I'll be helping people if I go into that path. But I really didn't know what I was getting into. Like no one in my family had really, I hadn't had any direct experience of people being in healthcare. There are a few people in the years above me that went and did it that seemed to be happy and I liked them and looked up to them. I thought, oh, well, maybe that's the path for me.
Yeah.
But it was a very naive decision.
So it's like 6 years of uni.
Yeah. And I think very quickly I realised I loved it. I definitely loved it, but I definitely realised that it wasn't necessarily it was you could see how the system was making people sick, you know, and I think I knew sort of at different times that it's still going to be the system that needs to change.
Especially in some of those aspects we can critique it. It's a form of government. There was like that. It felt like, or it kind of was actually like a John Howard's war on Medibank or Medicare or whatever.
Yeah.
Where it's like deliberately sort of chop it off at the knees.
Yeah.
So people have to go onto private insurance and stuff like that.
Yeah.
That sort of thing. So then making basic medical access near impossible for some people.
Yes.
That sort of thing. So you would have been coming up
within
through
the system, definitely. There were things that, you know, just and it's still a passion of mine, is that how healthcare costs, you know, are a significant barrier to accessing care. We don't have a properly universal healthcare system in Australia as much. We have a good system.
You have to go really go hunting for a bulk bill.
Yeah, but people are paying a lot out of pocket and more out of pocket, and it's not just to see your GP. It's for investigations, it's for medications, it's for dressings, it's for allied health, and it really adds up. And there are people who face compounding inequality because of healthcare costs that just lead to more and more other disadvantage for them because of that. And it comes down to those healthcare costs. So the US is quite famous for people experiencing bankruptcy as a result of healthcare costs. And we look at that and go, oh, goodness, aren't we lucky here? And it's true, we are. Like, it's unlikely that someone going into hospital is going to come out with a bill that means they've got to sell their house. But that's not to say we don't have people who are skipping meals, thinking about whether they can pay their next rent.
Or just missing it altogether.
Or missing out on healthcare. Who are just not accessing it.
Speaking from my side of things, as a man, a lot of people just don't go.
They just don't go. And cost becomes a factor. So that's definitely an issue. But I think even beyond that immediate healthcare system, and there's lots of other ways that the healthcare system, I think, fails people, you look at the things around people that are making them sick. And so if you don't have access to housing, if you don't have access to nutritious food, if the air quality that you're breathing is really poor, which is common, again, especially in areas where you might have
former industrial zones.
Former industrial zones where housing tends to be a bit cheaper. You've got all of these other factors. You've got racism, discrimination, that lead, a whole lot of systemic kind of factors that are leading to people then having poorer health outcomes that are not things you're going to be able to fix as an individual healthcare practitioner. That said, I loved that individual work, and I actually miss it because I haven't been doing it for the past few years. But
which is a good way to get your boots on the ground and sort of see it firsthand.
Yeah. And you can make a difference, and there's something really grounding about being able to connect with people, get to know them, their life. That's why I love general practice, actually, working as a GP, was that you get to know someone, you get to work with them over time, you get to, like that whole cradle to the grave thing is kind of true, and it's pretty special.
There was this show I watched, it's like The Heart of Dixie or something.
Okay.
And she's a doctor or something in the US, and she's like watching this. She takes over the practice of her dad or something. Yeah. And just like getting to know the entire town. Yeah. And then watching kids grow up. Yeah. From that you probably helped birth or something. Not that extreme, but you know what I mean? Yeah. Yeah. Being a part of the community. I mean, it's pretty special. And it's a very privileged position as well. People will tell you things that it's not quite a confessional, but it's a pretty special space, that space that you're privy to information about people and their lives that not many others get to hear. And so you come with people on some pretty harrowing journeys sometimes through that. There is really important work that you can do on that individual level, but it still was always in my mind that, someone would come to me with, like anxiety because but when you pulled it apart, it was because they, were going to lose their house because they couldn't afford their rent. Yeah. Because they're being treated really badly at work but they can't afford to lose their job. So they're kind of stuck in that. They're stuck in a system, and it's like, they come to see you, you're trying to help them with that, manage the anxiety as an isolated problem, as though it's something about them that needs to be fixed. And so all you can do is give them a Band-Aid to try and get through this. You send some counselling, but I'm like, you can have all the counselling you want. It's not going to pay you rent, and all of those situations were there. And I think that a tipping point really came for me when I was doing some work at a service for people experiencing homelessness in Melbourne CBD. And the situations there just brought to life the policy failures everywhere, because someone with a life-threatening illness, a simple illness that shouldn't be life-threatening became life-threatening because of a lack of housing or an example would be, there's a young guy who had type 1 diabetes, which meant that he's relying on insulin, but didn't have access to a fridge because he didn't have a home. And you need to store your insulin in a fridge. And you're trying to patch together an arrangement where they can store a bit, at the clinic or at the pharmacy or wherever it is, but was continuously bouncing in and out of hospital. And eventually died because of that situation. And it should not happen. Like it is not necessary. It's totally especially preventable. Being like just type 1. Totally preventable. Like it's a complex condition, but that did not happen because of a lack of treatment options. We knew what the treatment was, and I can write all the scripts in the world. Yeah. I can't provide access to a shelter and a fridge, and the same thing, someone coming with a chest infection,
the middle of freezing Melbourne winter.
Mm-hmm. We live on the street.
But you're sleeping rough.
They can't afford the heating for their
Exactly.
home.
And so you're trying to get an emergency hotel for a few nights just so that they can kind of recover enough so that it doesn't become a life-threatening pneumonia. And there are lots of other layers to complexity there. You've got lots of, particularly women who were experiencing horrendous violence, domestic violence, and then it was nearly always a feature of the story that led them to needing to, led them to the service.
Yeah.
And again, lack of housing, lack of income,
mm-hmm.
lack of some of those basic things. And these are all things we could do something about. And I just went, I needed to do something at that point. I was just frustrated. I didn't know what to do. And then I saw a job ad come up for a policy advisor for Richard Di Natale. He's a former senator, Victorian Greens senator,
mm-hmm.
and he was a leader of the Australian Greens for a while before Adam Bandt.
Yeah.
And but at the time he was their health spokesperson for the Greens, and he had an office just around the corner in Geelong.
Yeah, yeah.
He was a former GP who'd worked in the drug and alcohol space, and I was doing a bit of that work.
Yeah. Feels kind of natural,
And he was saying stuff in the Senate that just made sense. I was like, who is this guy? Because he just makes sense. Everything he's saying is the stuff I'm thinking about. It's the stuff I'm experiencing. It's what I'm frustrated about.
Yeah.
And he just spoke and advocated in a way that I was like, this is the guy. He gets it. He knows what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And this ad came up for a policy advisor job, but I couldn't do it because I was still finishing off some training, and it was just not the right timing. And I also wasn't sure that I was ready to jump ship, from medicine and
policy,
and do that job. But I liked the sound of it. So I just reached out. I put in an application that was like, I don't actually want this job, but
I just want to get on your radar.
I'd love to help. Yeah, I'd love to help you. And he actually reached out and said, a couple of weeks after I sent that in, I got a call, and he said, why don't you come down and have a chat?
Yeah.
And that was kind of the start of it all, because I wasn't a member of a political party. I didn't know much about it. I was just passionate about an issue, and I just wanted to go and help in some way.
Mm-hmm.
And it all, so started from there really. I did some volunteer work with his office. It was during that time that he actually became leader of the party. So it was whisked off to Canberra a lot more often.
Yeah.
But got to know some amazing people. I think I found my tribe, I found people who were similarly passionate about making a difference in the world and were doing things to affect that change.
Yeah.
And I suddenly realized, this is the group of people I want to be working with, because their values, the way they were doing things was kind of, it just resonated with me. And and basically from that point, it wasn't long before I was putting up my hand to be a candidate, which is nothing I'd ever wanted to do. I never wanted to run for anything.
You came for that naturally, or you just like,
no,
you're like, I should run, or
no.
Someone was like, hey.
Yeah. So, yes. So as often happens, it's someone else tapping you on the shoulder or giving you a shove to say, would you run for this? And so I really didn't want to. I liked the idea of doing policy. I like the behind the scenes stuff, some of the advocacy work. But I was convinced by a few people that running as a candidate, especially it was for a seat that wasn't going to be winnable for us, but we needed still needed representation.
You got to give people choice.
Yeah, to give people choice, that it's a great way to be an advocate for the issues that you care about. And it turned out to be really true. Like that first experience of running as a candidate. So I ran in a federal election for this seat of Corio.
Oh, you ran for a
federal seat? Yeah,
probably Mr. Miles.
Yeah. So yes.
Okay. Yeah. I thought you were talking about the city council stint.
No. So that was shortly after. Ran for a federal seat was my first go, and it was great because I had a platform where I could suddenly, go to a rally and talk about asylum seeker policy and what I cared about. I could talk about Medicare and healthcare access and out-of-pocket costs. And but it also gave me a weird opportunity. I suppose it was strange because you feel like you know your community, but you get these invitations to go into parts of your community as a political candidate that you just didn't know about. And you see all of this terrific work that's going on in all sorts of little corners, or issues that like, really need a light shone on them.
Yeah.
And I loved actually that part of it as much as anything, you know, that opportunity to really just get out there and get involved.
And to experience and see that the community is already looking after itself in ways.
Oh, absolutely. Like
but they
amazing
just need,
work.
like you said, that light shone on them to show that they're there, that maybe other people don't see it.
Yeah, absolutely.
I guess marketing for these community groups is kind of what you've been doing.
Well,
not, you know what I mean? Like there's a layer of that.
You can do some advocacy. You can promote the good work that they're doing. And just that, again, that privilege of being invited into different spaces, you know, and it's something that I think, you know, you could probably go and do if you wanted to, but it's something about being a candidate gives you access to some of that.
Mm-hmm.
So it was really enjoyable. And it was also connecting with other people who came out to support the campaign, who wanted to be part of change and who shared the same desire to see change.
Yeah.
There's something really amazing about forming those connections, because I think a lot of the time, especially if you've got things that you see in the world that you want, you know, you don't feel are right, that you want to see change.
Yeah.
Sometimes you can feel a bit alone or isolated or not quite know how to.
It's overwhelming.
Yeah.
The thought of trying to resolve this or help fix it.
Absolutely. But, and it is overwhelming, and it doesn't change that fact that it's very difficult to shift things. But there's a lot of power in connecting with other people who feel the same way as you and who want to see that change. And so you've got, you know, the volunteers and supporters, you've got all these community groups that come together. There was something lovely about that whole experience. That said, at the end of it, I went, thanks very much. That was great. Never again.
Really? Oh, so for running.
For running, I was done. You know, I was like, that was great, but it's a lot of work. And
because it's like weeks of
work
everywhere,
and
7
being
days a week.
public facing was just not, I just didn't, I found it, I wouldn't say I'm an introvert, but I just, it wasn't my thing. Like
it drains the battery quite a bit.
Yeah. And
is there like a filter you have to always put on yourself at times? Because I'm sure there's like, there's a behind the scenes opinion you have on things. But then there's like a way you have to make it palatable, or
it's interesting because
like certain language you can't use of certain
authentically.
Groups.
Yeah, I mean you have to be your authentic self. But I
you're not saying
struggle.
You're faking or anything. but it's like,
I know what you're saying.
Like
you
I usually swear a lot in my real life, so it's trying to not swear so much. Doing this is
and I think you're on. Like you're more aware that what you say, what you do is scrutinized, and so that's one part of it. The other part is that, you know, I have a personal life. Like I've got a family and other things, and I want to keep. There's parts of your life that you do just want to keep out of that. You know, it's not for public consumption. It's not. You know, it's
which that line can be hard to define.
Yes,
at times I think. Yeah,
absolutely, because it's a part of you, and you don't want to be, like I said, you don't want to be inauthentic. But there's also just certain things that I just don't think are up for grabs for everyone. Just because. So it took a little bit of. You know, I suppose given that was my first experience, it is, it's tricky navigating that line. And I wasn't sure if it was the life I wanted really to be doing that sort of thing.
Especially at a federal level.
Yeah, like it was, it was a lot. Yeah. But that said, we had, the Geelong Council had, I think later that year was put into administration.
Really?
Yes.
Poorly run or something? Or
there's a whole commission of inquiry you can go and read about it if you want to find out. There's a whole backstory, but all the usual allegations of corruption, bullying, all the usual. And so they were put into administration. So they didn't have council elections at the same time as the rest of the state. Their elections were the following year, and it was going to have a new structure, ward structure, whole, a whole new sort of system. And
similar to what's happened up in Melbourne, I think, maybe, where it's like instead of there's a group of councillors for this whole area, it's more there's individual seats within the council.
Well, interestingly enough, we'd gone from individual councillors.
Oh, you went the other way.
And
is it still like that now?
No, so they've gone back.
Okay,
but part of that commission of inquiry process, they had citizens' assembly, a whole lot of community input into what it should look like, and they actually. The recommendations landed on it should have multi-member wards. So multi-member representation is like a better model.
With their regions. Yeah.
Yeah, like it's actually better for a whole lot of reasons. It's actually a better model of governance. And there's a whole backstory to how we gone back to single member wards, but it's not a position that I support or my party supports either.
Okay.
Yeah, anyway.
You can talk about it if you want.
Oh, look, it's just not as democratic, you know. I think if you've got multiple people, it increases diversity on council. It reduces the risk of fiefdoms forming where, you know, you could potentially have councillors forming blocks and working against each other to fund projects in, you know, reading majority blocks wards.
Reading the local paper for Brunswick Voice or whatever, I read all about that where there's this back and forth blocks in the Marybeck City Council at times where it's like, oh, the Greens are doing this. Oh, the bloody independents are doing this. And they're all sort of fighting against each other. And
the blocks can still form, but it becomes much harder when you've got, it's very unlikely that you're going to have blocks of the same sort of groupings all within one ward. It's more likely that you're going to have a diversity of views within a ward. And so even if there's some block voting that happens on certain issues, it's unlikely to be ones that all affect
everyone. Or
it's unlikely that you're going to end up with certain wards being advantaged over others. We also know that for women, you know, genuinely independent or minor party candidates, people of colour, the representation tends to be improved with multi-member representation. And there's a lot of different reasons for that. But look, we've got the system we've got. It was there was a strange sort of political process at the state level that landed us with that. But yeah, the first council election that I ran in had this multi-member ward structure in Geelong. And look, I hadn't thought a lot about local government. If I'm fair, my understanding of local government came from there was an ABC TV show called Grassroots. It ran in I want to say the early to mid 2000s. I'm not really sure. It was very funny. And now having been on council, I can see how genuinely funny and close to the truth it was. But it was a bit of a parody, you know, of a fictional Sydney council. And I thought, why would I want to do that? But once again, someone came, you know, I had a few persistent taps on the shoulder. And
you've had a bit of experience with the federal thing too. So it's
had a bit of experience with the federal thing, but then had someone sit me down who'd been on a council and give me a really inspirational talk about if you care about public health and that's where you want to see change, local government is one of the best places to actually get change when it comes to public health. And I hadn't thought about it that way, but councils deliver a whole lot of different important services. When you think about things like urban design, that can directly impact
the things
health.
That do affect people.
Things like the everyday lives that people have.
Yeah, because that common thread you were saying where it's like, okay, the health thing isn't the issue. It's the stability at home.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So local council can be responsible for that.
Local council affects a whole lot of things that impact people's health and well-being. And they have that direct relationship and engagement with community. And I sort of left that discussion completely flipped and thinking, I have to get in there. Like, that's what I have to do. Like, this is where I'm going to make a big change. And so, ran another sort of campaign for council, quite different in its flavour. But
more localised.
More localised, but was really able to build on that experience from the previous one of connecting with other people who were really passionate about seeing change, different community organisations. And it was hard work, but it was actually quite an enjoyable experience. And I can't say I thought I was going to
enjoy it because like the federal one left a bad taste in your mouth a little bit.
Well, it didn't. It just was something I just didn't want to do again. Like, it was just a lot of work, but I had a great time during it. I just didn't want to do it again. Whereas this time around, I think it's because I decided I really, you know, I cared about the outcome in a different way. And
so it's not like you've realigned your aim.
Yeah, I think so. And I think I got more comfortable with that public. Yeah. I mean, I still, to be honest, it's still sometimes uncomfortable, but I think I'd got over some of those hang-ups about it and went, no, this is actually an important thing to try and do if we want to get change. And
especially on that medical front issue.
That sort of public health and addressing equity. Climate's always been a big part of it as well. And, this is at a time where I think there was growing interest in the role of councils in addressing climate change. And I look at that as a health and an equity issue. And so that was something that was there for me as well. I just thought, this is something I really want to do, and was lucky enough to get elected. And so that was an experience. Like, it's a big council, Geelong.
Yeah.
I had no idea. Again, it was like it was a bit like starting medicine. I didn't really know what I was getting into. I had this idea of it and I was inspired, but really had no idea what local government was like.
But I'd say that first year would have been just like first year of uni, where they try to weed you out, isn't it?
Yeah.
Where they give you the worst of the worst.
Yeah, possibly. It's a very steep learning curve, but I also had my first child that year, and my first, like, about 4 months into being
you were pregnant and campaigning.
Pregnant and campaigning.
Oh my God.
I was very sick, so it was that.
Yeah, wow.
But, there's a whole backstory to that, but it probably in a way was a very good distraction for me as well, and just helped me focus on the big picture about, what's the world that, I want kids to grow up in.
Especially
Yeah. So no, that was a wild time, like first time counsellor, and my partner had just taken on a new job with big responsibilities, and we didn't have any local family at the time. And so that first year was a lot, but it was great.
Was it a full-time job, the council here? Or was it still a part-time job, wasn't it?
It's a part-time job, but
but it's still a lot, because it's basically your main job and that. Yeah.
And I stupidly didn't take any time off. Like, I just kind of kept going. And so I had a baby at all the council meetings, and I was lucky. I had a very, very good, I didn't realise at the time, but a baby that was just brilliant to bring to things. Didn't sleep at night, but was happy as a duck during the day, and could just bring along, pop on or hold there, pop on a rug.
It's the kind of baby that convinces other people to have a baby.
Yeah, they were just like,
so easy. Oh.
Yeah. There was often a lot of stress that went into, oh my God, how am I going to make this work around nap times and feeding, and but made it work, and and it was great. I really enjoyed being a counsellor. I think it just built on that, experience I'd had campaigning, where you get out into the community, you get to know different groups and what they're doing. In different ways you can advocate for change. Yeah. And then when you actually see it happen, it's great. And it doesn't always happen in the chamber. Some of the stuff happens in the chamber, but some of the really good work actually happens behind the scenes. And between the monthly meetings. Yeah, in between the monthly meetings or fortnightly meetings, or however often you have them, it's that in between those formal decision-making meetings, it's that work of getting out, meeting community groups, connecting them with an officer who might be able to help them, maintaining good relationships with the council officers who, by and large, they get a bad rap, I think, sometimes publicly, but like by and large,
council people or council people,
councils generally, and the staff that work for them. Sometimes I think, my experience is you've got a lot of people who are actually really good. They're passionate. They want to see a difference in their communities as well. They usually live here and are part of community, so it's in their interests. And there's just a lot of great work that can happen. And a lot of it is what you were saying before about a community group who's already doing terrific stuff, and they just might need a little bit of support in one way or another to unlock the potential of their organisation or the work that they're doing.
Because shining a light on them, it might connect them with another business. I don't know, as a rough example, like a trucking company might have extra trucks that they just wanted to volunteer for charity. Yeah. And then this other company who maybe distributes food for homeless people, needs something, you know what I mean? But they didn't know either of them existed unless council brought attention to them.
Well, exactly. So there's those sort of things. It's the little footpath you can get fixed here and there. Like those things actually matter for people. Then there's the bigger policy things though that happen in a council. And I was the only Green on council, and I was sort of a bit of a novelty, I think, when I first got elected, because Geelong hadn't had a Greens councillor before. And I think everyone wondered what I was going to come in there and do. But there were a few.
Socialists.
Yeah. It was a funny sort of, that early time was interesting, but I think everyone quickly got used to me being there. And we had some big battles in the chamber over different issues. And there were some things that I think, at the time it can sometimes feel like you're not making any progress. But I remember when I was thinking about, do I run again or not? This is tiring and it does take a toll on your family. And I won't lie about that. Like it's, when you're a counsellor, you feel like you're on call 24 hours a day, even though it's a part-time gig.
You still need to be,
You need to be responsive.
To texts, emails, calls.
There's events every weekend and every evening, and you feel like you're saying no more than you're actually doing anything because there's just so much on and so much to be present for. And that's on top of, like, there's the public meetings, but there's a bunch of other meetings, and then you're on advisory groups, and the workload was big, and it felt pretty relentless. So you have to weigh up, can I keep doing this? In that same term, I had a second kid as well. So trying to juggle that. I'd gone back to work for a little bit in between as well. So you're trying to juggle some part-time work, council, kids.
Yeah.
It was a lot. But I did reflect on it and go, no, there were some really important things that happened that made me go, I need to keep going. Kept the fire alive.
Yeah,
and some of them were wins and some of them weren't. Some of the proudest things, I look back and go, I took a pretty hard line on poker machines and the role that councils could play.
Mm-hmm.
And some of that started with just my own personal, I have a deep-seated disdain for poker machines and the harm they cause to communities. And it was probably before I realised it was actually quite an important issue for our party and our policies. I just hated the things. And as
they're
councils,
not that fun. I don't know. Anyway.
No, and as a council, you are a planning authority that can make decisions about licenses for poker machines. And there were some big decisions that came before the council, and there was sort of this process that you went through, but it was always with this idea that, they're inevitably just going to get given the licenses and there's not much we can do about it. And there was one where the case against it was pretty strong. And so I went in pretty hard.
For a particular venue?
For a particular venue where they already had poker machines. There were a lot in the vicinity, in the nearby vicinity, and it was a low socioeconomic area.
Mm-hmm.
And so,
which is a part of the strategy.
On
those, machines.
And we know that the harm is greatest in close proximity to a predictor of harm is how close poker machines are and the density of those poker machines in that particular population.
Mm-hmm.
So there was a pretty good case to argue against it, and there's a whole lot of criteria where VCAT looks at, or the BCG. I can't remember. There's an acronym that's the Liquor Licensing Authority. I'm bad with all those.
That's
sort of
fine. Some alphabet accumulation. Yep.
That makes the decision, and I went, we should go in hard and bat for it, but it required some funding to lawyer up and really argue the case, and fought the fight in the council chamber, and we took it on and we won.
So was this just you or a few other fellow
The other councillors backed the decision.
Members?
You had to get majority support, but it was something I really pushed for hard because I was like, I think we should do this, and the officers were, willing to recommend it, but it took the council kind of really backing that in. And we won the case, and it was one of very few that's been won to deny a license. And it was one of those moments that you look back on and go, we didn't stop. There's pokies everywhere, and there's so many problems with the system. But it was one of those little moments where you have a little bit of faith in the system actually being, the ability to make change through the system.
If that's what you can do with a small amount. Comparatively, like what would be required nationally or state level.
And it just shows you that you can make change possible if you really believe in something. We also, had a lot of, and that continues to be a controversial issue around here, around bike lanes, and we won some of those, lost some of those, but, I've been passionate about improving access to safe cycling infrastructure. I think it's good for people generally to have. It's good for the environment. It's good for livability.
Yep. My potbelly was the smallest when I used to ride my bike everywhere.
Good for people's health. It's good for equity of access to, like people, a lot of people who aren't confident cyclists, often women, often older people, kids, need safe cycling infrastructure. So there's endless arguments for why it's a good thing to invest in, but for many reasons that still perplex me, it's controversial, and there's plenty of people who don't like the idea of any money being spent on bike lanes. So we had a few fights about those things. One of the biggest things that happened was there was a huge push, and that was probably in 2019, I reckon, for councils to declare climate emergencies. A lot of them had already done it, but momentum really built here locally in Geelong around this. And we had it sort of all built up into this huge school strike protest. that there were thousands of people in the street.
2019 one?
Yeah. But there was one in Geelong, and I haven't seen that many people out, and people that came out who had said, I've never been to a protest before, but I'm here for my kids, or I'm here for my grandkids, or I'm here for, I'm here to support these young people because this is too important.
Yeah.
And
especially with the fires going on at that time.
It was just before the fires
happened. That's right. Timing was like.
But it was, I know.
Way too scary on that one.
It was amazing, but it was just this movement, and I agreed to put a motion before the council about declaring a climate emergency, and worked really hard, quite openly with my fellow councillors to try and build a case for it.
Mm-hmm.
I thought we had majority support, and then for a bunch of reasons, and I've never really gone into the details of it, but that support fell apart probably just weeks out from when the decision was going to be made.
Yeah.
And it was over things that had nothing to do with the climate emergency declaration. And it was over internal deals and alliances and weird stuff. That
can happen in those. It's like, you were going to say yes on this thing, I'll say no on that, this.
I don't know. And anyway, it was for stuff that I just remember leaving a meeting being absolutely shattered. And I don't know, like more than I normally would be. Like I have a healthy dose of skepticism about everything. I'm a bit of a cynic as well about political processes, and I can't say I was naive to any of that, but there was something about that I went, if we can't do this here on something so important when you have so much of the community behind this, what hope do we have on climate? We just need, and it's a simple declaration, and I'm and
a lot of the times, like there's globally and even in our own country, just they'll make declarations all the time.
Well, this is
and
it.
they never follow through with them.
And I didn't expect it, but it's just like, just make the declaration. Like it's all we have to do. And it's like, we've got popular support. And I was shattered. And I think I was pregnant again. I was like, this was my second child. And so I probably had a fair bit of climate anxiety anyway. And so there was that overlay there. I remember just bursting into tears, and I'm not a big crier and certainly not a public crier if I do, but I lost it. I just thought, oh, this is so... I just felt so let down by it.
Disheartening,
Yeah. And then, so I kind of knew the vote was going down, but I thought, bugger it, I'm going to go ahead with it. I'm pushing this ahead. And the night of the meeting, I remember writing in for the meeting, and there were people out, like there's no room left in the chambers for the gallery with people out in the street. And I just felt this sense of, like the hope was restored, because I knew how the vote was going to go.
Yeah.
But I thought all of these people have come. They will witness what happened. And it was a disgraceful meeting, and people tried to talk, rhetorical pretzels, people tied, trying to explain their weird positions. Everyone saw through it and felt very let down. But I thought, no, these people have turned up. They've seen this. They're not going to buy it.
No.
And a bunch of them didn't let it go. They kept turning up meeting after meeting after meeting. And within, I can't even remember, it was months, we'd actually made a decision to acknowledge a climate emergency or something. They couldn't use the word declare, but, changed it. But they got there. We just had to do a little bit of a sustainability plan first. And it was what we were always going to do. But it was that community pressure.
Yeah.
And people kept showing up, and these great people came out. And I thought, no, yes, the political process can feel disempowering and disappointing sometimes, but it's not actually where the power.
Well, it goes to show that's what it is, isn't it? It's a democracy.
It's a democracy, and it can work. And And it was just that little moment that, I don't know, there's something about that just led me to go, no, we can still do it. And it comes back to that connecting with each other, people who care, who want to see change. It can happen.
Yeah.
It might not happen straight away. You got to keep at it.
Yeah.
But it was one of those moments that I'll never forget it, because it was very emotional. Then we had the Black Summer or whatever, bushfires, which is terrifying. And I think I think it was so quickly followed by COVID that I think a lot of that time.
It feels like it didn't get a chance to properly breathe.
No.
That bushfire.
Yeah. And I think because of then COVID, I think a lot of that, what had happened around that climate, that build up, their advocacy around climate probably took a step back.
Yeah.
Doesn't make it any less real. And I know for a lot of people that, it's still a key issue.
There was some like beautiful little specks of examples of what happens when we do cut emissions.
Yeah.
Because everyone's locked at home. No one's driving as much.
Yeah.
Like in the US, for example, there was like dolphins or something in the Hudson River in New York. Even Brisbane got a bit clearer.
Yeah.
Brisbane River got a bit clearer. Stuff like that is in India, you could see the Himalayas.
Yeah.
Stuff like that.
And it also shows you that when we have to pivot hard as a society and make hard change, we can do it. Now, it's not to say
it'd be nice
we want to be doing it
it'd be
like
nice if we didn't have to do it with a global pandemic.
Absolutely.
But we can if we need to.
There's a huge, it's not to say it was a good thing in any way. It was it was awful, and there are a lot of costs that we still feel today. Yeah. But in terms of the capacity to change and do that, and governments that sort of say, oh, we can't do some of these things quickly, it's slow, it's got to be incremental, we can't. No. Well, actually, they can make big changes quickly when they want to.
Yeah.
You saw that around, during that time, one of those small success or positive stories that came out of it was around JobKeeper and the difference that made for people's lives. Suddenly
just
having
to stay afloat during COVID.
Just suddenly having a reliable source of income was a huge pressure relief for so many people. And you just think, why don't we deal with income support? We still it made such a difference for people. It's a perfect
proof of concept.
Yeah, it worked, and it made a huge difference to people's lives. So I think it was an interesting sort of time, but it was. I continued on with. I ran a second term for a second term of council not long after I think all that climate emergency stuff had happened, and
so then you were a councillor during COVID.
Was a councillor during COVID, which was strange. Yeah.
What are some of the key different? Because you were a councillor pre-COVID and post-COVID. So what's some of the?
One of the weirdest things was that because it seemed like. This is probably doesn't seem it's not related to the sort of governance side of it, but just being a counsellor, I'd wanted access to being able to dial into meetings and that sort of thing when I had my kids, like when they were little babies. It just would have, especially briefings and things, not the public facing meetings. I was okay with that, but just there was no capacity to do that when I first started. Like it wasn't a thing. And after...
So have to be watching your kids and do these meetings?
I had to physically be there. There was no way to access a meeting remotely, which sounds wild now, right? Our world has changed so much, but this is... And it's not going back that far. You're talking 2018, really. No capacity. And after quite a bit of advocacy and back and forth with governance and other people, we managed to get, it was like old-fashioned, looks like a big spaceship that sits in the middle of a room. Audio
that's little
dial in. We managed to get that, and you're talking about one of those sitting in a council chamber that is huge and echoey, and anyway, it was the best they could come up with. And so I'm trying to listen in on these meetings sometimes, but at least it meant that sometimes when it was just too hard to come in with a baby and you just wanted to be at home, you could dial into a meeting and access some of the briefings, but it wasn't ideal. And then fast forward to COVID times, immediately everything's on Zoom or online.
It's crazy how quick
we were
all the
able
infrastructure for that got put into place.
Whole system.
Like seeing Marybeck City Council, this is space age cameras that move around to whoever's speaking and
But even we just held meetings, everywhere. Like briefings that used to have to come in for a half an hour briefing on something, an update on XYZ issue. We could suddenly just do it online, the whole world pivoted. And so I had a little baby and a toddler at home, and I was able to actually, that said, working from home with kids is really hard, and everyone experienced that during COVID. And as soon as I could get back in person, I wanted to be back in there without kids hanging off me. But it was just seeing that pivot and how quickly the organisations could actually change things. And it completely made it just made it so much more accessible. Because one of the things I'd noticed that once we had this spaceship set up, I wasn't the only one using it. It was people who were sick, who were, once there was greater accessibility for me, it actually made it more accessible for everyone. And I probably didn't use it as much as most of the others in the end, but
there you go.
It meant people could go on a holiday but still actually stay on top of council business if they needed to, or get a briefing. And I don't know, it changed the game. So it's just funny how little things like that Yeah.
Yeah.
Can make a really big difference.
When the world goes push to shove, you kind of have to pivot.
Yeah. Yep.
So I guess we'll COVID counsellor, then on the back end of all the COVID stuff, you choose to step up and do legislative council?
Yeah.
What's that?
Yep. Well, look, it was another one of those things where you get the tap on the, would you think about running for state? And I'm still a huge believer in local government, but I had reached a point where I was thinking a lot of the things I was getting frustrated about, I'm like, we're hitting a brick wall when it comes to the state stepping up. And it was things around, again, in a regional area, transport, active transport, but public transport in particular is something you can't really control as a councillor. Housing, I was doing what I could to advocate internally for the council to use what levers it had on social housing, and we developed a social housing strategy. We were looking at, we'd established a trust to try and fund or help support some social housing projects, but there's a limit to what you can do as a council.
Yeah.
And it's really primarily a state government responsibility. And the reason we were having the problems we were is the failure of state governments to invest in public housing. Climate action, again, we were starting to do some better things as a council, I think, on that front, but
that's just one small slice of the pie.
One patch, and you've still got state governments approving coal and gas projects, especially around this region. So there were a bunch of local issues and that were affecting more than just Geelong, but the whole Western Victorian region that I was thinking, I want to see some change here. This is frustrating. Yep, there's an opportunity here. I'll put up my hand and have a go. Again, not knowing what the outcome of that would be, but had reached a stage where I thought, no, I'm ready to step up, and then I don't know.
Yeah.
It happened.
Yeah, okay.
And so now I find myself there,
Yeah. Is it the same person this whole time tapping you on the shoulder? Being like, oh, you should run for this next one.
Different people. Yeah.
I was just saying if there was a mentor or someone.
No, but I have some really important mentors, and they are the people who tap you on the shoulder and believe in you. And, and it's one of those things that, I'm really quite passionate about supporting, people who are keen to run for election. I was really lucky. I also got to be part of a thing called Pathways to Politics for Women. It's a project that was, it's a program that originated at Melbourne Uni, and I was part of the inaugural cohort for that back in. It was at the same time I was running for Corio way back then. It happened at the same time, and I think through that network, I think I got to know some amazing people from across the political spectrum, but even within my own party, who have been fabulous mentors for me. And I realised, I think through all of my experiences, that having those people to back you, to give you the tap on the shoulder, that or the shove, as it often requires, go and do it, is something that, I had a responsibility to do for other people, particularly for women, for gender diverse people, for people who maybe aren't strongly represented in decision-making processes for a whole lot of structural reasons. You need more encouragement and support to put your hand up. Yeah. And a lot of it comes back to just self-doubt. The number of terrific women I meet with who you just go, you would be the best representative. They will say, oh, but I haven't studied politics. I don't have enough experience. I'm not ready. There's someone better. I'm scared.
It's a weird societal thing, isn't it? Where there's like this, it's easier for women to find the long list of reasons why they shouldn't do it. Yeah. But then as a man on the other side, it's easier for them to find a big long list of, I'll figure it out. Should be right. Yeah.
There's something, that's
structurally
quite structurally, culturally, that's just, means that there's that self-doubt there. That means that there'll always be an excuse for why it's not the right time. It's
or why they shouldn't do it.
I'm not quite ready.
Not a fan of that.
No,
I'm not, I may sound like a guy, but like it is. It's weird.
And I think having had the exact same dialogue in my own head, and I still have it. You still feel like you have that imposter syndrome all the time. But then the reality check is you go in to these spaces and you go, it's just a bunch of people sitting around a room making decisions. There's nothing special about anyone here.
That's something I'm starting to realize doing these interviews, you know, like
we're just a bunch of people who, for whatever reason, decided to put up our hand and actually have a go. Yeah. And so one of the things I really love doing is finding people and giving them that tap or the shove that I got. Yeah. Being fully aware that I still require that encouragement myself.
Yeah, which is where the mentors and fellow colleagues come in.
But, it's one of those things that whether it's through Pathways for Politics, through their sort of mentoring program or other things, or just other people, you know, I do find, people will either come up to me or you just find them out there and you approach them and say, look, I think you'd be good for this. You'd be good. You'd be great on council. You should get on council. You're starting to become that person. Yeah, I'm becoming the person. That says go and have a go, because I don't know. I mean, the way I view it, and look, this is being recorded, so someone will throw this back at me at some point. I have no idea. It's kind of the aim. How long I'll be doing this politics stuff for. In my mind, I don't see it as a career. Yeah. It's an opportunity I've been lucky enough to have at this point in my life. I feel really, you know, I feel so privileged and fortunate to have been able to do this work at council, now at the state parliament level. Yeah. But I don't see it as a right or a career. It's an opportunity I've been given by people. I think there's a time limit to how long I can make a useful contribution for. I don't know if I've reached that yet, but either the people will decide that, or
we'll find out next year.
I'll find out next year, or this year, other people will. Yeah. And I think it's really important we have, you know, new people stepping into that space, and that we share those opportunities as much as possible, because
so it stays representative.
And our parliaments and our decision-making bodies are not representative, like truly representative. They do an okay job, but they're not truly representative of the diversity in our society. And if you look at, you can cut it by lots of different metrics, but even if you look at women's representation, we do okay in the Victorian Parliament. We've got gender equity. It's the first parliament ever to achieve that.
That seems to be a theme of Victoria being the first of things. Treaty. Just want to drop that
so there's some really good things that happen there, but that doesn't happen by accident.
Yeah.
And then when you start to look at, well, okay, let's look at what that representation is. When you look at cultural diversity, you know, First Nations representation, we do have, you know, members from different cultural backgrounds. We do have, you know, First Nations, a member of parliament, but I don't think it's still not truly representative of the makeup of our community.
On those higher tiers of like state and federal.
Yeah, on state, federal, even local government, you know, I mean, I think that's one of those things. It feels a little bit
more diverse at times on local government.
It can.
Because when I'm going through all the websites to find people to interview, I'll notice that you'll go to different city councils, for example, and you'll be like, oh, that feels a bit more representative of the people who live there.
Yes.
There'll be more people from African or Indian descent from in like the Footscray area, Footscray City Council.
Yeah.
Compared to, you know, in a city like Melbourne itself, a lot of Asian background people who are in those positions. Yeah. I guess I'm not trying to burst your bubble there on that.
No.
But I understand what you mean on that.
And I'm coming from a regional context as well, where I think if you looked at regional councils, even just on the gender equity front, they really went backwards last council election. And
really?
Yeah. Okay. So I think there's some work to do there.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And it might be a regional metro.
Maybe I'm from the metro bubble. That's fine.
But no, you're right. And I think it's just something I think we need to consider. You know, how do we make sure that different diversity of experience is reflected in the people who are making decisions? Because you can't know someone else's experience, and it's not even. It's just that when you're making decisions that are going to then impact other people's lives, if you're not even aware of you know, what that experience is like, there are things there are questions you're not going to ask. There are certain things you're just not going to think of. Yeah. Because it hasn't been your lived experience.
Yeah, it's nothing you've experienced. Yeah.
Yeah, and you can try and develop strategies to make sure you're capturing broad experience. For example, you know, when we have a bill come before Parliament, we'll go out and engage with stakeholder organisations that and individuals and community members who
could be affected by it.
Who could be affected by it, and try and understand, well, what's this going to mean for you, so you can make sure you capture that perspective.
Yeah.
But I still think there's something in being someone who's actually having the experience at the time, being able to provide that firsthand experience of what it's actually
contribution
like.
To the adjustments that may be needed for that policy or what are some of the key differences for you going from that city council to state?
Yeah, it was an interesting transition. I certainly think the experience at council helped me a lot in preparing for being in state parliament, especially just little things like the procedures and processes, and it's all very formal and there's ways of doing things. And although they're not identical, there are enough similarities that you just feel like you might not know the exact way to do it, but you'll know that there will be a way.
Yeah.
And
what's that example of that? Is that 2-day crash course of how to be the right clown within that chamber?
Yeah.
These are the formalities we say.
Yeah, these are all the things we do. But even, moving motions and voting on things and just how all of that process works. There are some similarities with local government. Plus, in local government, you're dealing with different legislative instruments at different times. So some of that stuff, there's overlap. So that makes that part of it, it's not quite as steep a learning curve as I found that first step onto council.
Yeah.
The other thing that I think I got a lot of experience doing was dealing with people who have different political views and having to do that relationship building and negotiation.
Building that compromise.
But working on compromise, finding common points of connection is something I really enjoy, actually. It's one of the parts of politics that can be the hardest, but I quite enjoy it. And I gained a lot from my experience in Geelong where, others might have different views, but I did try really hard, no matter what I thought of anyone else and their politics, to be respectful. And you never quite knew when it might work to get an outcome that benefited the community, to work with someone who maybe otherwise you don't share common politics with. There was
just because of the colour of their party, there'd be this
or their history of voting on other issues. There might be an issue where for the community who's going to be affected, to get that outcome, you need to build those alliances. And I suppose that's how I like to approach things. I'm there for the outcomes. Yes, sometimes that means the best outcome is to put a stake in the ground and say, no, this is the right thing to do. And you lose, you might lose the fight on that. There are times for that, but there are times where you might need to compromise, or you might need to work in partnership with someone who otherwise, you wouldn't in order to achieve a change. And I think I learnt some of those skills through council, because you are the government when you're on council. In my case, you're one of 11, but together you form the government. So the only way you're going to get change, you only have one vote. The only way you're going to do it is by cobbling together at least 6 of those
to try and put something through
to get something through. So
do you feel that with these chambers in the state and the federal, they should probably operate a bit more like that, in the sense? Because you are all you've all been elected to represent cohorts within the state or federal or whatever. And there is that all right, well, we're the majority, what we say goes. Right? Which can be good, can be bad in some cases, right? But do you feel like there's a lack of consultation or acknowledgement that you are all there? You're all technically, like you said then, you're all part of the government in a sense, right?
Well,
I don't know. What's the go there?
I think that's a very interesting question, because I think
maybe that comes from my fence sitting point of view of you're all there. You should all come up with the policy together, shouldn't you? In some case, you know what I mean?
I think because this is what this is how representative democracy should work. So, you should start with the voting system, and there's a lot you could say about that, but is it truly proportional and representative? The system we've got, there are definitely benefits to it, but if you look at our lower house representation, effectively you have one person for one area. it tends to lead to this two-party, three-party system where, you know, compare that to the upper house though, where we have that, you know, proportional. More, I mean, I'll put aside the fact that we have a bit of a broken voting system in the Victorian upper house where we've still got a thing called group voting tickets. Very undemocratic. We can come back to that. But let's just say at the moment, no major party has a majority in the upper house. So they are forced to work with a diverse range of crossbenchers.
Which is my argument for keeping the upper house. Like I'm from Queensland and it's like a unitary, it's just whatever they say goes, which is good and bad, whatever, depending on who you're from.
And that happens in our lower house. Government just pushes it through.
Which then lets the upper house do its job, which is the House of Review.
Yeah. And it's quite a powerful position to be in. And so it means that there's no easy passage for anything. You've got to cobble together some sort of alliance, which means you have to start talking to each other. And look, it's not a perfect process. There are problems with it as well, but I think you get better policy outcomes that better serve the interests of the community when you do have that dialogue happening. If you look federally, there's that period where we had a hung parliament, which everyone talks about when Julia Gillard was Prime Minister, and people will say, people get very...
She did a deal with the Greens. Oh.
Yeah, but it was one of the most productive parliaments we've ever had. We got through more stuff than any other parliament. And I think that need to work across, you know, party lines with different
to find the actual people to compromise for certain policies.
To try and so it's not just, you know, one way through. I think it's a healthy thing. I think it's good. I think people like to see that as well. It's made out to be a bad thing.
Yeah.
But I think it actually leads to better outcomes, you know, when you have that, you know, diversity of views, having input to it, into a decision.
I feel like I agree on that.
Yeah.
As flawed as European governments can be, that's kind of what they do there.
Well, we're even despite our voting system, which has historically led to, you know, the dominance of a two-party system, a largely two-party system. We're seeing that breakdown here. Even despite that, the voting systems that we've got.
Which I appreciate our voting systems comparatively to the rest of the US, for example, or UK as well. Because I think in Australia we kind of avoid having that populist wave come through because it's like, all right, well, we just have to sort of pick who we think is going to do the best job and compromise, and that's where I think. But I don't know where I'm getting at, but I do like the preferential voting system that we have.
Preferential voting is fine. I think it's just about, you know, do we have representation that's proportional? This sort of still,
which I'm not sure how to fix that because the way that works is more of seat based.
But you could have multi-member representation in the lower house. Like you could have there's different ways you coid cut it that would potentially open up representation. But I think we're seeing that anyway, where people are moving away from the major parties. You're seeing more, you know, more Greens, more independents, other parties being elected in lower houses, as well as, you know, historically you see a little bit more of that diversity in senates or upper houses. But I think it's a good thing, and it reflects that people have diverse interests and want to see them better represented.
Yeah. Silly idea or naive. Maybe is it like, all right, well, there's, you know, 11% for the Greens in this house, so therefore they can have an 11% say on a certain policy or something, you know? Or is it like, all right, well, there's 35% for the Liberals, then they can have a 30. I don't know. Is that how it should be? I don't know.
I don't know about that. That'd be interesting.
Like they can make 11% adjustments to this bill. So I don't know, but
we could be very transactional about it. I think just the more that there can be genuine discussion, engagement, dialogue.
Like the door actually be open for oppositions to come in or other parties to come in. And a spirit of
genuine negotiation and compromise is not how it actually works a lot of the time, but that's the dream, is that you end up in a space like that. And I think the thing to remember is the connection with community as well, because that engagement shouldn't just be, you know, hopefully all the different political representatives are connected to communities and are representing, like the idea is you're there to represent the community and their voice, but it's so important that we maintain that engagement. We try and open our spaces to communities where we can. We where we can open decision-making for communities and hand that decision-making to communities, we should be doing that. I think there are some things that forces at play that make me uncomfortable, where I feel like when decisions get made that centralize power and decision-making, I think it can be worrying because, and we see that a bit even in state politics. I think, we've seen a lot of a movement where a lot of power has been taken away from local governments. Local government, yes, it might not be perfect, but they are closer to people and more embedded in community. Engagement has turned into, maybe it's never been perfect, but it's often just a ticker box exercise, and a lot of people feel quite disenfranchised by that process. I
guess an example would be taking away zoning or something where the state government can go,
it's a controversial issue at the moment where the state governments come in and they're taking a lot of the centralising power around planning decisions. And, they've got their arguments for doing that, but completely cutting out community input and voice, I don't think is going to necessarily lead to better outcomes. I've got the planning portfolio, so we could go on about that for ages, but I think, taking decisions away from communities is not where I feel like our democracy should be going.
Yeah. That sort of makes it a little less representative in some ways, yeah?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. And I think we should, you can't just assume that, as a representative, you're going to be a perfect, I can't hand on heart say I do my best to represent my electorate. I have an electorate of 500,000 people. There's no way the decisions I'm making are ones that...
From here all the way to the border, isn't it?
Yeah. There's no world in which I'm representing every one of those, the interests of every one of those people in every decision that I make. There are people who don't agree with a lot of the decisions that I make. I'm doing my best. I think I'm making the right decision on behalf of people who did put me there. Yep. I was voted in on, a particular platform with certain values, and I have to represent those.
Yeah.
I do try and listen. One of the things I do try and do is listen to people's perspectives, and even where they don't agree with me, I do think about it. And I think, well, is there something we could do that recognises that perspective? And look, it might not mean that I ultimately make the big decision that they want, but I try and, sometimes the decisions alter or advocacy alters a little bit based on that feedback.
Yeah.
And I do try and tell people that don't be afraid to come and tell me what you think and what you want, even if it's not something that I'm ultimately going to agree with.
Yeah.
There'll be a point where we might find some common ground or a little bit of advocacy I can do or a little amendment here or there that we could get, even though by and large we might support this thing.
Yeah.
We recognise, I hear your issue and I want to make sure that I do my bit and represent it. But the reality is I can't represent every single one of those people in every decision. And, the more people we can have in there helping to represent those different views, the better. And the more that our processes ensure that those voices are being listened to by government or through different channels, not just solely the elected reps in the room.
Yeah.
The better. Yeah.
Because, especially where you are, it's a lot of regions.
Yeah.
Regional communities.
And, have very different views on often on the same issues, you'll have. And some of that depends on how they're living that issue, how they experience it, what the history of that place is. And so you've got to balance all of those things. Geelong is a very, very different place to, Horsham or Hamilton or Colac or Torquay even. They're just different communities facing different issues. Yeah.
Got your work cut out for you.
Yeah.
I feel like we're getting there. Oh my God. Yeah. Sorry. So final question. What, if you could go back in time, find a time machine, what one piece of advice would you give yourself and why at the beginning of this journey?
Oh, that is a good question. I think it would be to focus on the thing that puts the fire in your belly, the thing that you're passionate about, and follow that in whatever you're doing. Because, if you're setting out, if you want to get involved in politics, I think it's really important to find the reason why you're doing that. If it's just because you like the idea of politics as a sport or you want to just be elected, look, that's fine. And there are people who enjoy that. But I think when things get tough, which they do, and there's a lot of hard work involved, or, you know, lots of different things come up that'll challenge you. Going back to that thing that you're passionate about and that makes you, that puts that fire in your belly, helps to show you the way through those difficult times. And it also helps you to see that there are lots of different ways you can make a difference.
Yeah.
And politics is one way to do it, but there are plenty of ways to be political, and there are plenty of ways to make a difference. And holding on to that thing that you're passionate about is the best thing to do. I think, you know, when I look back when I was younger, I kept thinking, I'm really passionate about these things, but what should I do? Where should I be? And I stressed a lot about the job that I was going to do and the best way, you know, the truest job to those values.
Yeah.
I think now I've worked lots of different jobs. Like, we brushed over a bunch of different stuff, but even within healthcare, I worked at a whole range of different things. And it doesn't really matter what job I was doing. There were certain things that I cared about, and I was able to, you know, act on those in the different spaces that I was in different ways. And
because you had that core.
Yeah. So it's more about who is it that you want to be? What is the change you want to make? Mm-hmm. Focus on that. And, you know, and rather than what's the job that I want to do, there are lots of jobs that can get you to that end point. And I think that helps to give you some direction, I think, and not feel as overwhelmed, especially if the things that you care about are those big challenges that the world is facing. There's no one way to fix any of that stuff, I don't think. There's lots of people out there doing lots of good work in lots of different directions. So just hold on to the fire. Figure out what it is that really gets you fired up, and then hold on to it, because that's the thing that'll help guide you.
Yeah, okay. I like that, because that from the first time you ran to then going for the city council, that's what you put into place, isn't it? It's like, all right, well, this is why I'm running.
Yeah, and it hasn't changed. And I come back to that. I go, why am I here? What am I doing? What are the things that I care about? There's a broad range of issues, but they come back to, there are things that, you know, there are these things that affect people's health and well-being, whether it's climate, whether it's, you know, injustice, whether it's, you know, economic insecurity, wealth inequality, all those things that are affecting people's health and well-being that I want to figure out the best way to fix. And whether that's one-on-one as an individual doctor and I do my advocacy there, whether it's, you know, working in a medical journal, whether it's teaching students who are, you know, studying medicine, whether it's like whatever the space is, as a candidate, as a representative at local government or at the state parliament, it's the same core thing that you come back to all the time, and it helps you remember. It just makes the hard times easier, but it also just gives you that direction and
having that North Star.
Yeah, absolutely.
Great advice.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Sarah, for your time today.
It's been lovely.
Yeah,
thank you.
Fantastic.